but obviously, we're here to tonight to chat about A Ghost Waits. I think we're
Yes.
almost coming up to the year from its debut.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that the other night because they Fright Fest Glasgow and Glasgow Film Fest like announced their stuff and they're virtual, and I just thought like, oh right, like that was a year coming up on a year ago. It's crazy to me that this little movie that we made ourselves and didn't have any no real connections, nothing like that. Like that, less than a year after its world premiere, it's going to be out on Arrow, where the world can see it. It's just kind of bananas to me.
I mean, you yourself, you started, as a film writer. What made you then sort of go to the other side? Because I mean, I talk to filmmakers all the time, and it sounds like a very stressful job. Why make that switch?
I've wanted to make movies my entire life. It's like the one thing that I've always known. I always, the clear memory I have of being in my basement watch on Hallam Avenue in Edgewood, Kentucky, or no, that might be in Ellesmere, but in northern Kentucky, watching the network debut of Back to the Future, during which they were going to show the first bits of footage from Back to the Future 2. And I had my Back to the Future storybook, and I was just like, oh, there's something about this kind of storytelling that's always just made sense in my head. And so, but it's strikingly difficult to get into. And when I moved to Los Angeles back in 2008, I'd been kind of mired in like a years long, pretty severe depression. And then my dog died, and she was 16 years old. Her name was Lizzie. She was the greatest dog in the world. And when she died, I kind of looked around my one bedroom apartment in Cincinnati, Ohio, and thought, I gotta get out of here. This is not a life I want to lead. And so I'd always thought, I'd always thought about going to Los Angeles. I'd visited, dug it, and so just decided to just move. Got out there and then thought, if I move 2,500 miles and then just stay in my bedroom, I'm going to feel pretty stupid. So I started volunteering for the Creative Screenwriting Screening Series, and which was a magazine that they would show a movie and then do a Q&A with the filmmakers, and that was released as a podcast. And so I started volunteering in that. Did that for like 8 months, I think. And then Jeff Goldsmith, who ran that one, was the editor of the magazine, asked me if I wanted to write an article. And I was given this little movie called Management, starring Steve Zahn and Jennifer Aniston, and did that and passed the audition. And the second movie I covered was The Hurt Locker, because no one knew what that was going to be. And yeah, so I got to spend a few years as a film journalist, and I didn't go to film school. Like that was the first phase of my film school, was getting to talk to working filmmakers all the time and ask them the questions that I always kind of wished they were being asked, because I don't give a shit what it's like to work with George Clooney unless I'm working with him. Like that's not what interests me. I want to know, like, what was the seed of the idea of the film? How did you know when you were done? What was like all that stuff that I didn't feel like I ever saw anywhere. And so I did that for years, working at a few different outlets, and then print died, and the magazine became a blog. And I got very tired of chasing very small checks, and decided, well, let's see if I can get some work on production. And so I was a PA on a few shoots, and I was a second AD on a feature called Split, which is not the M. Night Shyamalan one, but a bowling romantic comedy written and directed by my friend Jamie Buckner. And that is where I met McLeod Andrews. So it was always kind of an intention to get to this. It was a hope, intention might be a little strong, but it was a hope to get to this point. And then, yeah, it kind of, I feel like not a lot of stuff worked out along the way. And so it was just like, all right, well, I feel like most people that want to make a movie end up not making a movie because of how much sacrifice it requires. But when you don't have anything, it's really hard to sacrifice everything. Yeah. And yeah, it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of stress, but it's also like the best stress. I mean, I am barely sleeping. I haven't had a day off in weeks, if not months. But it's because I'm working on the special features for the Blu-ray of my first film that Arrow is putting out. Like, oh my God, that's the
Yeah.
best problem to have. Or maybe not the best, but a pretty good problem to have. Yeah.
Definitely. And obviously you sort of mentioned, inspirations. I was reading that this one sort of came from sort of two directions, a video game and a comic. How did, you then sort of, both of those nuggets of ideas, how did they come together to be A Ghost Waits?
The video game, I'm almost certain came first, of just playing this first person haunted house puzzle game and making my friends crack up laughing because I was reacting to a haunted house in the way that I would. So, you walk into the creepy bathroom and the lights are flickering and, suddenly there's a baby crying in the sink. And I was just like, no, like, I don't have to look over there. It's the thing in the movie theater, back when that was, don't go, like a door creaks open. It's like, don't go down those stairs. Like, I was just like, I don't want to go down the stairs. And so I thought there might be something there, which is often how ideas kind of start, is just like, oh, this is something that I don't think I've seen. But then I just kind of paw at it for a while and see if I can find anything really novel. And so then that Saturday morning breakfast cereal is the webcomic that I was looking at. And in this particular one, man and a woman are talking. Man asks the woman, what's the most American movie? She says Ghostbusters, because here's a movie where you have demonstrable proof of an afterlife, but the whole thing is about navigating government bureaucracy and growing a small business.
Yeah.
America. And I thought that's really funny, but like, oh my God, you're right. Like, if I were to see a ghost, I would have so many questions. And so that kind of glommed on to the, how could I explore a haunted house story in a way that didn't cost a lot of money, that played to my strengths as I understood them, and wasn't going to be a waste of time. These things are, again, they're so hard to do and it's so stressful. It's much easier to just watch a movie than to make one. Yeah. So if I have an idea that's like, oh, that's already been done, I can just watch that movie then. Great. So yeah, I tend to not get the bat off my shoulder until I think the idea doesn't work, so that then I have a kind of a puzzle to solve.
And I mean, it follows, a young man, lonely young man who's alienated from the world. That kind of situation has a whole new resonance at the moment. We've all been sort of shut off from one another. Have you found yourself, while you've been editing the special features, sort of seeing the film in any sort of different way?
It was interesting. There was, excuse me, there was, I think, a review out of, so our world premiere was Fright Fest Glasgow, and then we were brought back for Fright Fest, what became Fright Fest Digital, but the one that happens in London in August. And a review out of that, this person said that they had heard about it after Glasgow, and they were excited to see it. And they said they don't know if they would have liked it in March in Glasgow, but having been stuck at home, kind of having this experience that Jack has of not being able to leave and not being able to, they said they felt like they were haunting their own home, and it changed how they appreciated it. And they felt like, oh, they were able to better appreciate it, with this experience. I felt oddly prepared for this moment in time. This is just kind of where I live anyway, is feeling kind of apart from things. And I'm a very existential person by nature, and I'm always kind of wondering why I'm doing something and why people are doing what they're doing, and are they really thinking about it? Do people act with consciousness and consequence? And so it's a very honest, or I come by it very honest in the story. But then there's an outtake that I just found going back through all the footage for the special features that I think is going to be an Easter egg. But it's like the most 2020 thing possible, because they're just talking about like, we can't leave the house and we can't touch each other. And so yeah, it didn't really change my perspective on it, but I feel like it helped everyone else catch up to it, which is really nice. Thanks, pandemic.
Yeah.
Sorry, everyone else.
I mean, obviously, you mentioned that you met McLeod on Split. Did you always have him in mind when you were writing Jack?
Yes.
I mean, he's perfectly cast in it. I've seen him in other stuff, but this just seems like McLeod on the page.
He's amazing. I mean, not just he's a great actor. He's also just one of the best people I've ever met. I'm very fortunate to have a really a wonderful friend. We lived together for a little bit, and there was one week where we were working on his reel. We were updating his acting reel, and so we were watching everything that he's done to kind of, we can pull this scene from this movie, and I just started noticing that like every movie he was in, he was crazy. He was either losing his mind or had lost his mind, and I understand why, because he's a very good actor. So that's really hard to do. And if you find somebody who can do it well, like, go with that. But I remember telling him, like, you can do so much more. Like, I want to see you fall in love and save the world. And so when I had this idea, and once I kind of zeroed in on who Jack would be, I sent him kind of the broad strokes. And had he said, no, I don't find this interesting, movie just wouldn't exist. Because the whole intention, not just like, I want to make a movie, but I want to make a movie with McLeod. And it's not hard to make something that I haven't done before because I haven't done anything before this.
Yeah.
But I wanted to give him something new to play. And I know he's said elsewhere that his kind of goal was to give a performance that was a lot closer to himself. He'd been doing all these roles that required a lot of character work, and he just wanted to play something that required that he could do without filters, and it was a very transparent performance. And I think he's great. So I was like, yep, do that. And so it's very honest. It's a very honest, very personal thing that I don't think happens if you don't know the person extremely well.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just, I've mentioned this before in my review and on social media and stuff, just that interchange with him in a toilet seat, that just proves, how good an actor he really is. I mean, his co-star's giving him literally nothing. And, it's one of the most memorable parts of the film that really sort of captures him.
His instincts are so dead on. I mean, so I don't know, I don't know if people know this, but his day job, he narrates audiobooks. He lives in story. I mean, the guy just, it's books, and they're typically fiction. He's producing films with Perry and Evan, and so like his notes when he's reading something, he's so good at just like, how does this serve the story? Because I'd send him stuff where it's just like, this is a funny, weird little idea that I think will be a fun beat. And he's like, yeah, it's a fun beat, but how does it serve the story? Like, but it's funny and weird, and come on. And we got to kind of challenge each other because we have so much trust with one another to, I told him, like, I'm never going to let you look stupid, like, try something, like, get out there and I will catch you. And if I don't catch you, no one will ever know. And so, yeah, with the toilet scene, I had written the phone call, and I think like the scripted dialogue ends at, I hate people, I don't hate people. And then he had the idea to make the toilet talk, and I ruined the first take laughing, and we had to do a bunch more. And at one point I just like hit record. It was like, go. And I walked away because I can't keep myself from laughing. It's so good, which is why it works in the movie. But yeah, that's really tough on set to like not ruin your own take. You're like, this is lovely. Yeah.
I mean, the film was initially, I think, if I remember correctly, was, it was shot in color, and then obviously, the end result is black and white. And what made you decide to, to change that?
I always wanted to make it in black and white. I remember very clearly being on a location scout with my UPM and telling her, I think I want to make the movie in black and white. I think, and she said, no, absolutely not. Because as it turns out, black and white movies are very hard to sell. We got many no's. Obviously, we got the perfect yes, but we shot it in color, and we even had a plan for how Muriel would look, like what we would do in After Effects. I still have it on my computer, a little like mock-up. And then we shot this in 12 days in August 2016, and I cut together the assembly cut, and it was bad. And then I kind of kept it that, and eventually got better and stronger. But we eventually learned that we had to redo the first act. From minute 34 on, it was good, but we did not earn those first 33. And we had no budget left at all. So we couldn't bring anyone back. It was just McLeod and me. Our sound guy was a tripod or a gaff tape where we would just tape the thing to the wall. And so I was shooting the pickups. I was shooting that stuff. And two different shooters, two different, Mike Potter, who shot principal photography, he had like a bare minimum lighting rig, but he still had some lights. Whereas McLeod and I shot with natural light.
Right.
And cutting everything together, I futzed with it constantly, but it just never quite was as visually coherent as I wanted it to be. And it's entirely possible that nobody ever would have noticed the slight changes, but I would have, and it would have eaten at me. And I was bashing my head into the desk trying to figure out how to make it work. And McLeod said, "Hey, have you thought about making it in black and white?" And I said, "Oh, yes, I have." And we dropped a black and white LUT on it, and it solved the problem of visual coherence. But more importantly, it just felt right. Seeing Muriel in black and white, simplicity was always kind of a guiding North Star for this. And it was just perfect. Like the second you saw it, it's like, all right, well, this might hurt our prospects, but it helps the movie. And so, yeah, we never looked back.
And obviously another key component is the music. There's not many characters, so a lot of it is driven by the the soundtrack and the score. Did you have any of those songs in mind when you were writing?
Yes. Years Go By was always going to score the ending. I had fortunately met the Bangsons. They were workshopping their show 100 Days at the No Theater in Cincinnati, and I had met them in line for coffee a few blocks away and asked them, "Hey, I'm trying to make a movie. Do you think I could use one of your songs?" And they're fortunately just like the best people and said yes. Punk Kid is the song that when she's messing with the radio, it's the song that's playing when the pizza arrives, and then when she starts messing with the radio, that's by a band called Honey Honey. I've been friends with them for years now, since probably since 2009, 2010. I met them in Los Angeles, and they're just wonderful. And that is the one song of theirs not owned by a record label.
Right.
So I asked, "Can I have it, please?" And they said yes. The song that starts the movie, "Stubborn Love" by James Smith, McLeod brought that in. He knows James. He's known him for a while. They met doing a play in New York. But every other song is a friend of mine. It was people that I knew I could just personally ask. And, it's like, we're not going to have a music budget, so please. And they were, very few no's. Most everybody, knew that I'd been trying to do this for a very long time. And they got pretty excited about getting to be a part of it, which was really nice. So, yeah. So they were all pretty much a part of it, yeah.
Yeah, and then you co-wrote Muriel's song as well, is that right?
Yes. Margaret Darling, who also did some of the score of the film, she was in a band called the CD Seeds in Cincinnati. We'd known each other for a long time. We were friends, or we are friends. And one day I just asked her, hey, like I have this idea and I've never written a song really, but I have some of the lyrics and I have kind of the melody in my head. Would you mind helping me? And she was like, absolutely. So, because she also likes a puzzle to solve. It's one thing I love about the CDC's music is it's very almost mathematical in a way that I feel similar to Radiohead. Not that they sound like Radiohead,
Yeah.
but the establishment of patterns and whatnot. Yeah, I thought, I think Margaret would be really good for this. And so she went off and, was looking at music from the general era that Muriel lived in, and came back and like, yeah, I got to write a song with one of my favorite musicians, which is amazing. Like, this whole thing is just like a string of miracles. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely sounds like all of the right people. Supportive, creative. The best sort of people.
It worked out. Yeah, it worked out.
I mean, we can't talk about the film without talking about that first screening in Glasgow. I mean, I unfortunately couldn't be there, but from what I hear, the reception was incredible. I mean, how obviously first time feature, a foreign man, a new land. What was it like taking it to that audience? How was that screening experience?
That was probably the most amazing experience of my life so far. I had never traveled outside of the US. That was my first international trip. I got my passport in order to go. In fact, one of our executive producers paid for that because I was broke. I had no idea what to expect. So I generally just went in with no expectations. But immediately everybody was so warm and welcoming. The guys who run Fright Fest were just amazing. They were telling me, like, we never all agree on a movie and we all agreed on this one. And I thought, like, I bet you say that to all the filmmakers. And then I saw them telling the other filmmakers, like, A Ghost Waits is the only movie. Like, oh, okay. That's not lovely. And then we showed it to 400 strangers and they really dug it for the most part. And afterwards, came up and were just very vulnerable and open and kind of telling me about how the movie specifically spoke to them and how it felt, how they felt seen by it, which is precisely my hope with art in general. But like, you make something, it's like, yeah, I hope this is for somebody. And when you make a movie like this that costs so little, you don't have to worry about the 4 quadrants. You don't even have to worry about one. You can make a movie for 9 people. And I had been so resolute that, okay, this movie isn't for everybody, but it's for somebody, and we just got to find them. For the first room we played in to be those somebodies, felt amazing, completely overwhelming. I cried a lot, and I hugged so many people as a pandemic was kicking up, which is, in hindsight, not the smartest thing, but.
Well, I mean, I say I'm gutted that I couldn't actually be there, but toddler and a pandemic looming probably wasn't the safest thing. But right. I guess my sort of final question would be, it's getting this released through Arrow, who are this incredible champion of physical media. You've been talking a little bit about extras. What can people sort of expect? What should they really look out for when the Blu-ray comes out?
We've got a couple of commentaries that'll be on there. Including one that I'm really excited about that I feel like I haven't really heard one like it before. Making this movie, I felt like I may never get to make a second one. So there was a lot of stuff that was very important for me to say in this. I knew I couldn't get every idea into it, but I had a few things that I wanted to say. That's just like, if I never make another one, at least I did that. I may never get to make another Blu-ray like this. Home video is sadly, going by the wayside. And so I'm really kind of seizing on it. And so there's one commentary that I'm really proud of that my friend Corey Luffler joined me for, that's all about the emotional experience of making your first film. Instead of going into technical stuff and on-set anecdotes and everything, which McLeod and I cover. I'm really excited about that. The outtakes are good. There's going to be some outtakes. There's I don't know if you're familiar with Be Kind Rewind. It's a YouTube channel. She's doing a video essay about ghostly romance. Yeah, there's going to be some really cool, and I think there's even a few other things. But and then there's going to be some digital exclusives on Arrow, the streaming channel. So plenty of stuff for people to check out.
Yeah, well, I can't wait to actually get a disc copy of it. Obviously, I've seen it a couple of times now, but it needs to go up on the wall in the collection. So, but my fingers.
And Craigie and Mann is writing an essay that'll be in the first pressing, and I think that's another thing that I'm really excited. This whole process, and I know we have to wind up, but like this whole process, I've been so amazed by the people that we've kind of found. Sister Hyde did the artwork for the Arrow release. Craig wrote this essay. Like it's just remarkable. We've gotten so lucky so often. And I'm making, to paraphrase Gandhi, I'm making the Blu-ray I wish to see in the world. And I think people will dig it because it's made by a fellow nerd.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like I say, I'm very much looking forward to it. It's a very special movie. So I've got my fingers crossed that it does really well.
Thank you very much.